Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yes, welcome back.
Today we're tackling something a lot of you have been asking about,
Oh, yeah,
unlocking your creative potential.
definitely.
We found this awesome article called 8 Steps to Unlock Your Creativity from That's Life 24/7.
Great article.
And wow, it's got some great advice.
It really does. And it's not just for, artists. This
Right.
applies to anyone.
Totally. Like, even if you just want to be more creative at work or even just coming up with,
Yeah.
a cool birthday present.
Exactly. What's so cool about this article is that it really emphasizes how these principles can apply to any area of life,
Yeah.
where you want to think outside the box or be more innovative or just be more expressive.
Yeah, and one of the things I found super interesting is that it debunks this whole myth that you're either born creative or you're not.
It's true.
Like, it argues that anyone can learn to be more creative,
Yeah.
which I think is so empowering.
Totally. And they have some really fascinating evidence to support that idea.
Oh, yeah.
They mentioned the work of John Cleese.
Wait, John Cleese from Monty Python?
Yes, that John Cleese.
Wow.
He and a researcher named Donald McKinnon found that creativity is more about playfulness than IQ.
Really? I never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
So how does that change things for someone who's always thought of themselves as, not a creative person?
Well, it kind of levels the playing field.
Okay.
It means you don't have to be a genius to tap into your creative potential.
Right.
It's more about nurturing that sense of curiosity and wonder that we often lose touch with as we get older.
Okay. That's interesting. And the article really stresses the importance of play.
Yeah.
It actually says, rediscover the joy of play, and gives examples like doodling or building with blocks.
Totally, like we did as kids.
Exactly.
And there's a reason for that.
Oh, yeah.
Play allows our brains to loosen up, make connections we wouldn't normally make,
Uh-huh.
and explore different possibilities without that inner critic always judging everything.
Yeah, like little kids aren't afraid to just try things out, get messy
Right.
and experiment just for the fun of it.
Exactly.
I remember when I was a kid, I used to spend hours building forts out of blankets and pillows and
Oh, yeah.
just totally losing myself in that world.
Pure creativity.
But somewhere along the line, we start taking ourselves way too seriously.
I know. It's like that fear of judgment creeps in,
Right.
and we become afraid to look silly or make mistakes.
So true.
But this article makes a really good point that embracing imperfection
Okay.
is actually crucial for having those breakthroughs.
So they're saying we should just forget about being perfect.
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
It's more about shifting our perspective.
Okay.
Instead of striving for perfection, which can be paralyzing,
Mm-hmm.
it's better to focus on the process.
Yeah,
The joy of experimenting and exploring new ideas.
I like that.
And mistakes, well, they become valuable lessons, not failures.
That makes sense because the article also talks about confronting those inner voices of self-doubt.
Right, those inner critics we all have.
Exactly. And they even suggest things like mindfulness and letting go of needing validation from others.
Such an important point.
Yeah, like learning to create just for the joy of it, not for likes or applause.
Exactly, and that takes courage, which is another key takeaway from the article.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, it's about reframing those failures
Right.
as opportunities for growth.
Yeah. So building resilience.
Exactly. Think about it.
Okay.
Every successful artist, inventor, entrepreneur,
Yeah,
they've all faced rejection and setbacks.
true.
But it's their ability to learn from those experiences and keep going that sets them apart.
So how do we get better at that?
Well, the article has a great suggestion.
Okay, what is it?
Keep a journal to document your creative process.
Interesting.
Include the challenges,
Yeah.
the failures.
Yeah, you track your progress.
Exactly. It helps you see patterns and identify areas where you can grow.
I like that it's like turning those setbacks into data.
Precisely, data that can inform your creative journey.
Now that you mentioned the creative journey, the article also talks about something that I've always found fascinating.
Oh, what's that?
The connection between our emotions and our creativity.
That's a powerful connection.
I've definitely felt it, but never really thought about it too much. What does the article say?
Well, it emphasizes how our emotions are powerful fuel for creative expression.
Okay.
It encourages us to tap into that full spectrum of feelings, the joy, the sadness, even the anger and frustration,
Right.
and use them as inspiration.
That makes me think of artists like Frida Kahlo and Vincent van Gogh.
It's about ignoring that voice of self-doubt,
Mhm.
taking risks, putting your work out there, even when it feels scary.
Yeah,
Honestly, the fear of judgment is often way worse than the actual judgment.
so true.
It's about shifting your focus
Okay.
from what others might think to the joy of creating and exploring new ideas,
I like that.
and the satisfaction of pushing your own boundaries.
So how do we start flexing that creative courage muscle? Any baby steps we can take?
Sure, the article suggests starting small.
Okay.
Like, take a creative risk that feels manageable, something that stretches you a little, but doesn't feel completely overwhelming.
Got it.
Like, maybe share a poem you wrote with a friend,
Okay.
try a new recipe, or suggest a bold idea at work.
Yeah, I love that idea.
It's about those small, consistent actions
Yeah.
that build your confidence over time.
You don't have to become some fearless creative warrior overnight.
You got it, and you don't have to do it alone.
Oh, that's a good point.
The article hints at something we can explore further: the power of collaboration.
Ooh, I'm really curious to hear more about that. But first, let's take a quick break.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back with more from our deep dive into unlocking creativity.
So before the break, we were starting to talk about the power of collaboration when it comes to creativity.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating aspect that the article only briefly touches on.
Right, and I think it's something that a lot of people overlook, you know?
Absolutely. They think of creativity as this solitary pursuit.
Yeah.
But imagine what happens when you bring a group of people together,
Okay.
each with their own unique perspectives and ideas, and you create a space where they feel safe to brainstorm and experiment.
Right, like a safe space to bounce ideas off of each other.
Exactly. It's like that synergy you get when people are truly collaborating.
The whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And if you think about some of the most innovative companies or artistic movements in history,
Yeah.
they often came from groups of people who were passionate about a shared vision
And we're willing to, challenge and support each other.
and build on each other's ideas.
Exactly. So it's not just about throwing a bunch of people in a room and hoping for the best.
Definitely not. It seems like it takes real effort to create that kind of collaborative magic.
Right. You need to cultivate a culture of collaboration
Okay.
where everyone feels valued and empowered to contribute.
How do you do that?
Well, it starts with building trust
Okay.
and psychological safety.
Psychological safety. What does that mean exactly?
It means creating an environment where people feel comfortable taking risks,
Okay.
sharing their ideas without fear of judgment,
Right.
and even admitting when they don't know something.
I see. So it's about being vulnerable.
It is. It's about fostering openness and respect,
Yeah.
where mistakes are seen as opportunities to learn.
Not as failures.
Exactly, and that's where those principles we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah, like playfulness, embracing imperfection, being fearless.
Exactly, then they become even more powerful when you're talking about collaboration.
Can you give us an example of how this might look in a real-world setting?
Sure. Imagine a team that's working on a really challenging project.
Okay.
Instead of getting stuck in traditional brainstorming methods,
Yeah.
they decide to incorporate some playful elements.
Like what?
Well, maybe they use games,
Okay.
or visual aids, or even role-playing
That's cool.
to explore different perspectives
Right.
and generate ideas that they wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
So they're kind of tapping into that childlike sense of wonder and experimentation.
Exactly. And because they're embracing imperfection,
Yeah.
they're not afraid to try things that might seem silly at first.
Right.
Because sometimes the most innovative ideas come from those unexpected places.
And I bet the fearlessness factor plays a big role too.
Absolutely. If you're in an environment where you feel safe to take risks
Uh-huh.
and voice your ideas,
Even if they're a little out there.
right, then you're more likely to come up with something truly groundbreaking.
It's like you're creating a culture where people feel empowered to challenge the status quo,
You got it.
to push boundaries and explore uncharted territory.
And when that happens, the creative possibilities are endless.
This is all so inspiring.
It is.
It makes you realize that these principles can be applied to so much more than just specific creative projects.
Absolutely.
Like they can impact the way we work, learn, interact with each other.
It's a shift in mindset,
Yeah.
a willingness to embrace playfulness, imperfection, and fearlessness.
And maybe this deep dive will be the spark that ignites that shift in our listeners.
I hope so.
So now that we've explored all of this amazing information,
Yes.
I think it's time to recap the key takeaways from our deep dive into unlocking creativity.
Sounds good. Where do you want to start?
Well, we started by debunking that myth that creativity is something you're born with.
Right?
We learned that it's actually a skill that can be developed.
By anyone.
Exactly, no matter who you are or what you do.
And then we talked about the importance of play, how it helps our brains loosen up, make new connections, and explore ideas without that constant judgment.
Right, like tapping into that childlike curiosity we talked about.
And of course, we can't forget about Embracing imperfection,
So important.
letting go of perfectionism, and seeing mistakes as opportunities to learn.
And that ties into resilience, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We talked about how successful creative people have all faced setbacks.
Right.
But it's their ability to learn from those experiences and keep going that makes the difference.
And of course, we had to talk about fear.
Yeah.
Facing our fears, both internal and external, is
Yeah.
crucial for creative growth.
Taking risks, pushing boundaries, sharing our work, even when it's scary.
And we even explored how all of these principles can be applied to collaboration,
Yeah,
creating those safe spaces where people feel comfortable sharing ideas and experimenting.
exactly. And we even touched on how these principles can go beyond specific projects
Right?
and influence the way we approach life in general.
Like cultivating that mindset of curiosity, playfulness, and fearlessness.
A mindset that can infuse our lives with creative energy.
It's beautiful.
It is, and I feel like this conversation is just the beginning.
I agree, and I'm excited to see what our listeners do with all this information.
Me too.
Now, before we wrap up, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
The article focused on unlocking creativity for personal growth and professional success.
Right.
But what about the role of creativity in addressing some of the bigger challenges facing the world?
Wow, that's a deep question.
Like climate change, social injustice, political polarization?
It is, and I think it speaks to the power of creativity as a force for positive change.
I like that.
If we can tap into that collective creative potential,
Uh-huh.
imagine the solutions and ideas and movements that could emerge.
It's like we're being called to be creative activists,
I love that creative activity.
using our imaginations and ingenuity to tackle these problems.
It's about recognizing that creativity isn't just about making things beautiful.
Right.
It's a tool for social change.
Problem solving, building a better world.
And the article gave us a framework for how to tap into that power.
Right. Those 8 steps, those principles of playfulness, imperfection, fearlessness.
They're like the building blocks for a more creative and innovative approach to life.
And the best part is that they're accessible to everyone.
You don't need a special talent.
Or a fancy degree.
You just need the willingness to look at things differently,
To question assumptions.
to experiment.
To embrace the unknown.
Exactly. So for our listeners who've been with us on this deep dive,
Yeah.
we want to leave you with this challenge.
Okay.
How can you bring more of that creative energy into the world?
What problem are you passionate about solving?
What change do you want to see?
And don't be afraid to start small.
Remember, every movement, every invention,
Started with a single spark of an idea.
maybe it's volunteering your time to a cause,
Using your artistic talents.
or even just coming up with a creative solution to a problem in your community.
Inspiring others with your perspective.
The possibilities are endless.
And who knows, maybe by embracing these principles
You'll unlock your own creative potential.
and inspire others to do the same.
And that's how we create that ripple effect of creativity and innovation.
Transforming our world for the better.
So go out there,
Be bold.
be curious,
Be playful.
and be the change you want to see.
Beautifully said. And that brings our deep dive into unlocking creativity to a close.